For numerous years, my mother and sister tirelessly endeavored to mend my relationship with my former boyfriend. Despite their persistent efforts, I had moved forward in life, marrying someone else and expecting a child. My initial romance with my ex began when I was merely 16 years old, as I started dating my brother's closest friend. Our relationship endured until I graduated from high school. At that critical juncture, he proposed to me, but I chose to decline his proposal. This decision ignited significant turmoil within my family, who fervently encouraged me to reconsider. They suggested that we might have an extended engagement period, or make a promise to reunite in the future. While I managed to cope with the strain for some time, 36 years with my brother and 32 years with my sister, the bond with my sister never healed. She was steadfast in her belief that my ex was the ideal match for me, and her relentless insistence became intolerable, especially when she began dating my ex's brother. My ex was a constant presence at our family gatherings, invited by my siblings to nearly every event, including family holidays. I remained silent about my discomfort, because he was also a friend to them. However, everything changed when my sister intensified her efforts to reunite us. She orchestrated blind dates, arranged for us to share rooms during holidays, and ensured that my ex was present at every occasion, regardless of the event. After enduring this for a considerable period, I reached my breaking point and requested my parents to intervene. They confronted my siblings firmly, putting an end to the incessant invitations and preventing my ex from tagging along. This intervention provided some relief, as my brother decided to back off, but my sister did not relent. The situation escalated dramatically when I met my future husband during a semester abroad. He attended a different university, but hailed from the same country, and we instantly connected in a way that felt nothing short of magical. After dating for a year, we became engaged, and my family was overjoyed for me, everyone except my sister. She continued to argue that I was merely in the honeymoon phase of my new relationship, and that my feelings would eventually fade. However, my emotions remained steadfast. After countless, unmanageable arguments and numerous attempts by my sister to reunite me with my ex, I finally confronted her. I sternly told her that if she continued her meddling, I would cease all communication with her. In response to my ultimatum, my sister became hysterical. She demanded that I spend all my time with what she termed the bridal party, which essentially meant my ex and his circle. She even went as far as setting one of her friends as my husband's date. We only realized the extent of her manipulation during the wedding reception, when one of her friends attempted to make a pass at my husband. My sister rationalized this behavior by claiming that since we weren't married yet, it was acceptable for me to explore other relationships. Outraged by her actions, I left the party and the following day sat down with my parents and brother to explain the situation. I made it clear that while I wouldn't force them to choose sides, I would cut off all communication with my sister if she continued her interference. My mother was heartbroken and attempted to mediate, but my father and brother stood by my decision. Since then, except for 2 attempts by my mother to reach out, I haven't spoken to my sister in the past 6 years. Despite the distance, my sister has continuously tried to reconcile with me through various means, including sending gifts and throwing tantrums. However, I have remained resolute, choosing to ignore her completely. At family gatherings or dinners, I act as though she doesn't exist. Initially, she resorted to making snarky remarks or trying to stir up drama, but without any support from other family members, she eventually gave up. She did have a meltdown when she discovered she was invited to my wedding but wasn't involved in any of the preparations. My brother expressed feelings of guilt for going along with her actions for so long, and his relationship with my ex has deteriorated as a result. Although they still communicate, they are no longer as close as they once were. Recently, on my mother's birthday, I shared the joyous news that my husband and I are expecting our first child, a granddaughter. Everyone was overjoyed except my sister. My mother noticed her disapproval and asked me to join her for tea the other day. My intuition warned me against attending, but I chose to stay positive. Upon arriving, the first thing I saw was my sister's car. As I walked through the door, I found her husband, my ex, and his mother all gathered together. They had organized an intervention, claiming that my immature tactics had persisted for too long. My ex attempted to defend himself by saying he was trying to be romantic, though he admitted he understood why I couldn't appreciate his efforts. His mother argued that I was simply hurting my sister by insisting she wanted the best for me and had already apologized, so I needed to forgive her. I was taken aback as I watched my family text my father, brother, and husband, all while my mother declared that I was being hurtful and needed to mature, especially since I was about to become a mother. My mother began reading a heartfelt letter expressing her pain over the strained relationships between her daughters and defending my sister's intentions. Then, my sister shared her own letter, breaking down and recounting a different version of events. I remained silent, observing the scene until my brother arrived. He was visibly furious, angrier than I had ever seen him before. He grabbed my belongings and expressed his deep disappointment and disgust with everyone present. We retreated to his car, where we stayed until my father and husband arrived. By that point, I was in tears, and my brother kept apologizing. Unsure of what exactly transpired during the intervention, I decided to take drastic measures. I sent an email to everyone except my mother, including my lawyer's contact information, stating that I no longer wished to have any contact with them. I made it clear that if they attempted to reach out, I would involve the authorities. So far, no one has contacted me, but I know from my father that my mother and sister are in a state of hysteria. They expressed hopes of repairing our relationships, and for my sister to be a part of my baby's life, possibly even as a godmother. My father is currently staying with my brother for support, and while some family members have distanced themselves, my husband remains steadfast in his support. My mother's birthday brought more tension when I announced my pregnancy, and despite her disapproval, I stood firm in my decision to protect my family's well-being. Eventually, I agreed to have a conversation with my mother a few days later, setting clear boundaries for any future interactions. These included family therapy, establishing clear limits, preventing her from sharing information about me with my sister, and ensuring that our holidays remained separate. The most crucial rule was that if she ever interfered again, she would be completely cut off from my life. Although she felt overwhelmed by these conditions, she was willing to comply, mistakenly believing that our issues were immediately resolved. I explained that healing was a process, and that she needed to demonstrate genuine improvement. My father and brother remained steadfast in their refusal to communicate with my sister, continuously apologizing for not stopping her behavior sooner. We had forgiven them, recognizing their ability to move forward and grow. My husband supported every decision I made, though my mother expressed uncertainty about cutting her access to her granddaughter, ultimately leaving the choice up to me. I found myself torn, unsure of how to handle my mother's persistent comments and actions. My sister claimed she no longer intended to push us back together, but I doubted her sincerity, especially given her attempts to label me as a bad sister for being close to my siblings, whom I consider wonderful people. My husband theorized that my sister might be experiencing mental health issues, adding another layer of complexity to our already strained relationships. The most unsettling aspect was that my ex still held onto the mixtapes and CDs I had made for him during our relationship, items that were about 2 decades old. He continued to cling to these mementos, much to my dismay. Some commenters expressed surprise at his continued presence in my brother's life, but my husband advised me to remain firm with my mother, emphasizing that she must adhere to the rules I had set. My sister needed to face the consequences of her actions, and to be fair to my brother, he had already begun distancing himself from my ex when I expressed discomfort with his constant presence during my college years. My brother made significant efforts to make my husband feel welcome, which only worsened his relationship with my ex, who felt betrayed by my brother's loyalty to my new husband. Now, my husband is one of my brother's closest friends, only communicating with my ex when it's about our nephew, or to maintain basic civility. A major reason my sister continued her attempts was because my mother also believed her actions were justified. This realization deeply saddened me, as my mother had always been kind to my husband, leading me to question the authenticity of their relationship. Our background and culture aren't influenced by Indian or religious traditions. My parents were genuinely good and kind-hearted. Initially, they saw the relationship between my sister and my ex as romantic, but eventually recognized that it wasn't meant to be. They supported my pursuit of higher education and everything else, but now I understand that my father was the primary supporter, while my mother may have simply followed my sister's lead. Update 1 ***. Shortly after the initial fallout, I wanted to express my gratitude for the overwhelming support and advice I received. I realized that many of my comments were too numerous to address individually, so I decided to provide additional context. My ex and I ended our relationship when I was 18 years old. He is now 37. The primary reason for our breakup was my reluctance to marry or become engaged at that time. My sister's insistence stemmed from her obsession with the idea that both of us would marry brothers and maintain a best friend dynamic. Although my mother was always kind to my husband, I started to believe that her niceness was merely a facade, which deeply saddened me. Since our breakup, my ex has been involved with other people and has fathered 2 children with another woman, though he has never been married. My sister romanticizes his actions, claiming it's a very romantic gesture, and that he has always wanted to marry me. I should mention that his obsessive behavior isn't limited to just me. I've heard through the grapevine that he exhibited similar tendencies with the mothers of his other children. Now, he's redirecting his focus back onto me, encouraged by my sister's desire to win me back, so she can repair her own relationship with him. My brother began distancing himself from my ex when I told my parents how uncomfortable I was with his constant presence during my college years. Despite living away for school, I would visit my family during breaks, and my brother made a significant effort to make my husband feel welcome. This only further strained his relationship with my ex, who felt betrayed by my brother's loyalty to my new husband. Nowadays, my husband is one of my brother's closest friends and only communicates with my ex when necessary, such as concerning our nephew, or to maintain basic courtesy. My mother has been a major supporter of my sister's actions, which is a significant reason why my sister persisted in her attempts to reconcile. This revelation deeply saddened me, especially since my mother had always been kind to my husband. I began to question the authenticity of their relationship. Despite coming from a non-Indian, non-religious family, my parents were genuinely good people who initially thought my sister's relationship with my ex was romantic. However, they eventually realized it wasn't the right match and supported my education and personal growth. I now understand that my father was the main supporter, while my mother may have simply gone along with my sister's beliefs. Update 2 On December 17, 2021, I received numerous requests for an update, and with some free time, I decided to share more about my situation. Firstly, I want to express my heartfelt thanks for all the support and advice I've received so far. It means the world to me. For those seeking more information, most of the updates are positive, so let's delve into them. My ex and I parted ways when I was 18, and he is now 37. The breakup was primarily due to my unwillingness to marry or become engaged at that time. My sister's insistence was fueled by her fixation on the idea that both of us would marry brothers and remain best friends. Despite my mother's continued kindness towards my husband, I began to believe that her demeanor was merely a facade, which caused me great sadness. After our breakup, my ex continued to see other people and has 2 children with another woman, although he has never married. My sister romanticizes his behavior, claiming that it's incredibly romantic and that he has always desired to marry me. I should mention that his obsessive tendencies extend beyond just me. I've heard from the grapevine that he exhibited similar behaviors with the mothers of his other children. Now, he's redirecting his focus back onto me, encouraged by my sister's attempts to mend our relationship so she can restore her own standing with him. When I expressed my discomfort with my ex's constant presence during my college years to my parents, my brother took it upon himself to distance himself from him. My brother made significant efforts to make my husband feel welcome, which only exacerbated his strained relationship with my ex, who felt betrayed by my brother's loyalty to my husband. As a result, my husband is now one of my brother's closest friends and only interacts with my ex when necessary, such as concerning our nephew, or to maintain basic courtesy. A major factor driving my sister's continued efforts is her awareness that my mother also supports her actions. This realization was incredibly disheartening, as my mother had always been kind to my husband, leading me to reassess their entire relationship. Our family background isn't influenced by Indian or religious traditions. My parents were genuinely good and kind-hearted people. Initially, they saw the relationship between my sister and my ex as romantic, but eventually recognized that it wasn't meant to be. They supported my pursuit of higher education and everything else, but now I understand that my father was the primary supporter, while my mother may have simply followed my sister's beliefs. Update 3 ***. By March 30, 2022, I had received numerous requests for updates, and finally found the time to share more details. Once again, I want to extend my deepest gratitude for all the supportive comments, messages, and advice. Your support has been invaluable during this tumultuous time. My ex and I ended our relationship when I was 18, and he is now 37 years old. The breakup was primarily because I wasn't ready to marry or become engaged at that time. My sister's insistence was driven by her obsession with the idea that both of us would marry brothers and remain best friends. Despite my mother's ongoing kindness towards my husband, I began to suspect that her friendliness was merely superficial, which saddened me deeply. Since our breakup, my ex has been involved with other women and has 2 children with another woman, although he has never been married. My sister romanticizes his actions, claiming it's incredibly romantic, and that he has always wanted to marry me. It's important to note that his obsessive behavior isn't limited to just me. I've heard through the grapevine that he exhibited similar tendencies with the mothers of his other children. Now, he's redirecting his focus back onto me, spurred by my sister's attempts to repair her relationship with him so she can regain his favor. When I expressed my discomfort with my ex's constant presence during my college years to my parents, my brother took steps to distance himself from him. My brother made significant efforts to make my husband feel welcome, which only further strained his relationship with my ex, who felt betrayed by my brother's loyalty to my new husband. As a result, my husband is now one of my brother's closest friends and only communicates with my ex when necessary, such as regarding our nephew, or to maintain basic civility. A significant reason my sister continued her attempts was because my mother also believed her actions were justified. This realization was deeply saddening, as my mother had always been kind to my husband, leading me to reassess their entire relationship. Our family background isn't influenced by Indian or religious traditions. My parents were genuinely good and kind-hearted people. Initially, they saw the relationship between my sister and my ex as romantic, but eventually realized it wasn't the right match. They supported my pursuit of higher education and everything else, but now I understand that my father was the primary supporter, while my mother may have simply followed my sister's lead. Update 4 ***. On June 25, 2022, we officially moved into a new house, with my father relocating into the guest house. We engaged in numerous discussions, both in and outside of therapy, and concluded that while it was beneficial for him to live with us, we all still required our personal space. We're still renting out the old residence, and will decide its future later. My father now has the grandchildren over about 3 times a week. However, he still needs to see my sister's child separately, because she refused to let him take the kid unless he knew where he lived, a reasonable request, given her unpredictable behavior. About a month ago, my father revealed that he had been financially supporting my sister's child's schooling and babysitting, which is why she still allowed him to see him. He felt guilty about keeping this a secret, and didn't want to burden himself with more guilt, so I reassured him that it was nothing to worry about. On Mother's Day, my father received an email with a link to an Instagram account that featured a sad video about my mother, portraying her as a saint and my sister as her loyal supporter. This was both pathetic and enraging, so I forwarded it to our lawyer. In May, my father officially filed for divorce, a process that is still ongoing. My mother insists that he is in the wrong, but my father has firmly decided that he would rather face severe consequences than return to her. My brother and his family are doing well. We spend a lot of time together, and have been included in some family holidays since the last update. They are also maintaining no contact with my mother and sister. Interestingly, my sister revealed that she wasn't actually a fan of our mother, but had kept the peace for the sake of appearances. My in-laws continue to be wonderful, and we now allow my mother to babysit overnight, which she enjoys immensely. Sometimes, she has all her grandchildren under one roof, delighting in playing pretend airplane games with them. They all love her, and we recognize that she is wonderful without having children of her own, so we don't worry about her presence. She had to make her social media private, because my mother kept stalking her, likely out of extreme jealousy. Throughout this ordeal, my husband has been my anchor, helping me stay sane as minor issues arise. We're even contemplating having another baby or possibly adopting one, though we haven't made a final decision yet. We have an incredible support system and the privilege to discuss these matters openly. I still miss my mother dearly and often cry when I realize there are milestones I can no longer share with her. However, I know she is not the person I thought she was, and my baby's safety and well-being take precedence over maintaining a toxic relationship. My therapist reminds me that healing is a marathon and encourages me to focus on the positive aspects of my life. Regarding my ex, also known as Bartz, his professional life took a severe hit due to his actions. Not only was he terminated from his job, but his reputation within his industry was also irrevocably damaged. His brothers faced similar repercussions, although they were fortunate enough to retain their positions since their industry is less concerned with reputation. My husband had to intervene, contacting Bartz's employer to inform them about the chaos he caused, which led to Bartz being suspended pending an internal review. I'm almost certain he will be fired, as his employers have been requesting more information and seem genuinely apologetic about the situation. My mother has attempted to locate us, but everyone who knows our whereabouts has cut off contact with her. My father's lawyer sent her a letter stating that due to her instability, all future correspondence would go through legal channels. Now, it's just my father and me handling the situation, because I felt terrible about my father being alone. He has promised that he will be okay, and reassured me that none of this is my fault. Despite this, I still feel awful because my father has been the best babysitter, feeder, and diaper changer imaginable. My nephews adore him, and my father even managed to visit my sister's son. This was possible because she kept making threatening videos about harming herself if my husband didn't stop alienating her family. My father emailed her about seeing her son and threatened to involve the police if she continued her threats, which seems to have halted her behavior. Someone brought up that I gave Bartz false hope, but that couldn't be further from the truth. I spent years feeling uncomfortable, believing he would eventually move on, but then I met my husband and fought long and hard with my sister about it. My engagement was extraordinarily long, which is why I married after my sister. Despite everything, I still love my mother and sister, but I choose a healthy life for myself and my family over that love. Throughout this entire ordeal, I've discovered immense loyalty, love, and compassion, which, as strange as it may seem, makes me feel fortunate that everything eventually fell apart. Hopefully, the chaos isn't too much of a ramble for you to follow. Sending big hugs your way. **** Final update. June 30th, 2024 ***. Long time no see. I have some updates to share, but first, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks for all your comments and messages. Every time I log into this account, I'm greeted with mostly positive interactions, and I truly appreciate it. I'm not sure how many people will read this, but for those seeking updates, most of them are positive. My parents are now divorced after many heated arguments and tantrums from my mother. She retained the house and received a substantial payment, but that was the extent of the settlement. My father has transformed into a new person, and we are all incredibly happy for him. Reflecting back on all the drama, it's important to note that we did not fire our cleaning lady, a woman who had been assisting my husband's family for decades. I was very stressed about her losing her job due to our family's actions. However, my father spoke with her and informed her that she was on a paid vacation until we secured a new house, giving her the option to continue working with us if she wished. She was genuinely happy about this arrangement, as was her family. My father even started receiving occasional food and supplies from them, appreciating what he was doing for them. Interestingly, my father is now dating her sister, who owns her own nail salon. She is a lovely woman with grown children, so she understands the dynamics at play. My mother nearly had a stroke upon hearing about my father's new relationship, accusing him of experiencing a midlife crisis and reducing himself to being a sugar daddy. This was the last I heard from her, as I have no contact with her. She has been struggling, because she was never good at budgeting and relied heavily on my father. He had to put a stop to her frivolous spending. My sister is also having a hard time, because my father is no longer financially supporting her. Initially, he was willing to continue helping for the sake of my nephew, but things took a turn for the worse when my nephew started calling my child Bartz's baby and labeling her as his own. During a birthday party, he even pushed one of my nephews, claiming they were not related and that the kids were confused, which they were. My father spoke with him, but he kept repeating his false claims. When my father confronted my sister about this behavior, she claimed she couldn't prevent a child from telling the truth, arguing that all kids do that. Frustrated, my father decided to cut them off completely. My nephew was then enrolled in public school, because my husband insisted that my father sever ties with them. Bartz remains unemployed, and his professional reputation, in an industry that doesn't prioritize personal conduct, suffered greatly. I have received 2 more lengthy, handwritten letters from him, but since he only has my lawyer's address, he is unaware that I am not responding directly. I adore my lawyer. He has been incredibly supportive and efficient in handling these issues. In terms of gossip, there haven't been many problems related to Bartz, except for one incident at a grocery store. A random woman approached me, accusing me of having Bartz's baby, because he had a photo of us on his profile. She shamefully berated me for hurting such a good man. This continued narrative from Bartz has led my husband to confront his employer, resulting in Bartz being suspended pending an internal review. I am almost certain he will be dismissed, as his employers have requested more information, and seem genuinely remorseful about the situation. Despite these challenges, my father and I have maintained our relationship, because I felt immense guilt for him being alone. He has promised that he will be okay, and reassured me that none of this is my fault. However, I still feel a sense of responsibility and sadness, because my father has been the most amazing babysitter, feeder, and diaper changer imaginable. My nephews adore him, and he even managed to have a visit with my sister's son by addressing her continuous threats to harm herself if my husband didn't stop alienating her family. My father emailed her about seeing her son and threatened to involve the police if she continued her threats, which seems to have halted her harmful behavior. In summary, while the situation remains complex and emotionally taxing, my husband and I have managed to create a supportive and loving environment for our growing family. We've built a strong support system, allowing us to focus on our health and the well-being of our baby. Despite the ongoing challenges with my mother and sister, I feel empowered to prioritize my family's safety and happiness above all else. Final thoughts. Navigating through such intense family drama has been incredibly challenging, but with the unwavering support of my husband, father, and brother, I've managed to maintain my sanity and protect my family's well-being. While I still miss the mother I once knew, I recognize that her presence is detrimental to the healthy environment I strive to create for my child. Moving forward, I plan to continue focusing on the positive aspects of my life, cherishing the love and support I receive from those who truly care, and ensuring that my baby grows up in a nurturing and safe environment.